The silence of deep space was not peaceful. It was a heavy, waiting thing. General Kalen stood on the bridge of the Imperius, the largest ship in the Royal Galactic Empire. He stared out the massive window at a small blue and white planet floating in the distance. It was called Earth. It looked beautiful from up here, but Kalen knew that looks could be very deceiving. He had spent 50 years fighting wars across the galaxy. He had conquered planets made of ice, planets made of fire, and planets filled with monsters. But he had never been afraid of a planet until now. Behind him, the sound of metal feet clicking against the floor approached. It was Grand Vizier Malak. Malak was a high-ranking leader in the Empire, but he was not a soldier. He was a politician. He had shiny armor and a cape made of red silk, but he had never smelled blood or heard the screams of the dying. "General," Malak said, his voice sounding proud and bored at the same time. "Why have we stopped?" "The fleet is ready. The soldiers are in their dropships. We are scheduled to invade in 1 hour." Kalen did not turn around. He kept his eyes on the blue planet. "We are not invading, Malak. I'm calling it off." Malak let out a sharp, angry laugh. "You cannot call it off. The High Command has already approved this. Earth has resources we need: water, minerals, and biological matter. And the people? They are primitive. They fight each other with sticks and small explosives. They are divided into hundreds of little countries. They will not be able to stop us." "That is what you think," Kalen said. His voice was low and rough. "I have been watching them for months. I have been listening to their communications. I have studied their history." "Their history is boring," Malak said, walking up to stand next to the general. "They have had hot wars constantly. They kill their own kind over imaginary lines on a map. They are weak." "No," Kalen said, finally turning to look the vizier in the eye. "They are not weak. They are practicing. They have been in a state of constant conflict for thousands of years. Every single generation of humans learns how to fight, how to kill, and how to survive. They do not fight because they are ordered to. They fight because they are angry." Malak waved his hand in the air. "They are savages. Our technology is 1,000 years ahead of theirs. Our shields can stop their nuclear weapons. Our lasers can melt their tanks. They will see us, and they will fall to their knees." Kalen walked over to the tactical table in the center of the room. He pressed a button, and a hologram of Earth appeared. He pointed to a small red dot on the map. "Do you see this? This is a city. 3 days ago, a massive earthquake hit this city. Did the humans run away? Did they ask for help from the stars? No. They dug into the rubble with their bare hands. They worked for days without sleep to save strangers. They are incredibly stubborn. I do not care about their spirit," Malak said, crossing his arms. "I care about the Empire. We need this planet. If you are too afraid to lead the attack, I will find someone else to command the fleet." Kalen clenched his jaw. He was a proud man, but he was not a fool. "Malak, listen to me. There are 2 types of worlds in this galaxy. There are peaceful worlds, and then there are death worlds. Earth is a death world. The gravity there is heavier than most planets. The animals are dangerous. The bacteria are aggressive. And the humans, they are the apex predators of a death world. They breathe oxygen, which is a highly corrosive gas that destroys cells over time. It actually keeps them burning with energy. They are terrifying." "You are scared of a few monkeys with guns," Malak sneered. "I am trying to save the Empire." Kalen slammed his fist on the table. "If we go down there, it will not be a parade. It will be a nightmare. We have millions of soldiers, yes, but the humans have billions. They are creative. They are adaptable. And most importantly, they have nothing to lose. If you wake the sleeping giant, it will crush us." Malik had heard enough. He straightened his cape and walked toward the command chair. "General Kalen, you are relieved of tactical command. You are old. You have lost your nerve. I will take command of this invasion." Kalen stiffened. "Malik, do not do this. Leave humanity alone. I beg you. For the sake of our people, turn the ship around." "Silence," Malik commanded as he sat in the chair. He leaned forward and spoke into the ship-wide intercom. "All ships, prepare for deployment. Drop pods to launch in T-minus 10 minutes. Target all major population centers. We will show these primitive humans the power of the Empire." Kalen stepped back, his face pale. He looked out the window at Earth one last time. He could see the swirls of white clouds and the blue oceans. It looked so peaceful. But in his mind, he saw the fire that was coming. "May the stars have mercy on us," Kalen whispered. "Because the humans will not." The massive fleet began to move. Hundreds of black, triangular ships detached from the main cruisers. They descended toward the atmosphere like a swarm of locusts. The alarms on Earth began to ring, but it was too late. The invasion had started. On the bridge, Malik smiled as he watched the red targets appear on the screen. "Look at them, General. They are scrambling. They are confused. They have no idea what is hitting them." Kalen watched a different screen. It showed audio waves. He couldn't understand the language, but he could hear the tone. It wasn't panic. It was anger. It was the sound of a hornet's nest being kicked. "Do you hear that, Malik?" Kalen asked softly. "Hear what? They're screaming?" "No," Kalen said. "That is the sound of them loading their weapons." Malik laughed again, but Kalen didn't join him. The general knew that the war had just begun, and the Empire had just made the biggest mistake in its history. They had ignored the warning, and now they would have to pay the price. The humans were coming, and they would not stop until the alien threat was gone, no matter the cost. The general stood silent, a prisoner of his own bridge, forced to watch the disaster unfold. The blue planet below waited, silently, ready to bleed the invaders dry. The sky above New York City was usually a busy place full of birds and airplanes, but today it was tearing apart. A sound like the world itself cracking open echoed through the streets as massive, dark shapes descended from the clouds. These were the dropships of the Royal Galactic Empire. They were black as night, shaped like sharp triangles, and they moved with a speed that should have been impossible for something so large. As they lowered toward the skyscrapers, their engines glowed a fierce purple, scorching the glass and steel of the tallest buildings. People on the street stopped and looked up. For a second, there was total silence. Then, the screening started. Panic exploded like a bomb. Cars crashed into each other as drivers abandoned their vehicles to run. Crowds of people surged in every direction, trying to find cover. However, in the chaos, not everyone was running. In the middle of Fifth Avenue, a military truck had screeched to a halt. Captain Mark jumped out from the driver's seat. He was a man in his 30s, with short hair and eyes that had seen too much. He wore the combat uniform of the Earth Defense Coalition. He didn't look at the scared civilians. He looked at the massive ships landing in Central Park and on the Hudson River. He pulled his radio from his shoulder and shouted over the noise of the alarms. "Squad B, get over here. Form a perimeter at the intersection. Do not let them cross onto this street. Lieutenant Sarah, I need status reports now." A voice crackled back through his earpiece. It was Sarah, who was stationed in a bunker deep beneath the city. "Captain, sensors are going crazy. There are too many of them. They are landing in every major city. London, Tokyo, Moscow, they are everywhere. Their shields are up. Our standard missiles are just bouncing off. Mark gritted his teeth. He looked around and saw Sergeant Will running toward him, carrying a massive, heavy weapon on his shoulder. Will was a giant of a man, usually calm and joking, but today his face was hard as stone. "Cap!" Will yelled as he slid behind a concrete barrier next to Mark. "They are dropping troops. Big ones. They have armor that looks like black glass. Can you punch through it?" Mark asked, loading his rifle. "I don't know," Will said honestly, "but I'm going to try." Just then, the first wave of alien ground troops marched into view. They were tall, easily 7 feet tall, with elongated heads and 4 arms. They held plasma rifles that hummed with a deadly energy. They moved in perfect lines, like robots, not looking left or right. They did not seem to care about the humans running in terror. To them, the humans were just insects in the way. Fire. Mark screamed. The human soldiers opened fire. Bullets sparked against the aliens' energy shields, creating small ripples of blue light. The aliens stopped marching. They turned their heads slowly toward the soldiers. They seemed surprised that the insects were fighting back. "Target the legs," Mark ordered. "Aim for the area under the shields." Will raised his heavy weapon and pulled the trigger. A loud boom shook the street. The rocket flew straight and true, hitting a concrete barrier in front of an alien squad. The explosion didn't kill the aliens, but the cloud of dust and debris confused them. For a moment, their perfect formation was broken. "They don't like dirt in their eyes," Will laughed darkly. Reloading the weapon, on the bridge of the Imperius high above the planet, Grand Vizier Malak watched the battle on a large holographic screen. He sipped a drink from a golden cup, looking used. "Look at them, General Kalen. They are throwing small pieces of metal at us. It is almost cute." General Kalen stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His face was pale. He wasn't looking at the futile gunfire. He was looking at how the humans moved. "Look closer, Malak. Look at the one with the heavy weapon." He didn't fire at the enemy. He fired at the ground to blind them. "They are already adapting to your superior technology." Malak waved his hand dismissively. "It is a desperate trick. It will not save them. Send in the walkers. Crush their little barricades." Back on the ground shook. From the landing ships, massive war machines stepped out. These were the Imperial walkers, tall metal legs that supported a heavy cannon on top. They towered over the buildings, casting long shadows over the soldiers. The cannons began to glow. "Take cover," Mark shouted, pushing a younger soldier down. The plasma cannons fired, turning the concrete barricade into molten goo. If Mark had been there a second later, he would have been dead. The heat was intense, even from 20 feet away. "We can't stop those with rifles," Will yelled, coughing in the smoke. "We don't stop them with guns," Mark said, his mind racing. "We stop them with the city." "Will, can you drop that building to your left?" Will looked up. The building was an old brick structure, damaged by the initial landing. "Yeah, I can bring it down." "Do it. Time it right. Wait until the walker steps past." Mark grabbed his radio again. "Sarah, tell me you have good news." "I'm hacking their network." Sarah's voice came through, sounding tense. "They are arrogant. They are using an open channel for local coordination. I can feed them fake signals. I'm making them think there are thousands of us in the subway tunnels. Good work. Keep them confused." Below them, in the subway tunnels, Dr. Emily was running. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she was carrying a laptop and a strange device she had built from captured alien tech. She didn't have a gun, but she had knowledge. She saw a squad of aliens moving down the tunnel tracks, searching for survivors. They hadn't noticed her in the shadows. She plugged her device into a maintenance junction. She wasn't trying to blow them up. She was trying to talk to them. Listen to me, Emily whispered into her microphone, translating her voice into the alien language she had studied. You have made a mistake. The aliens stopped. They looked around, confused by the voice in their helmets. Who speaks? Show yourself, primitive. We are not primitives, Emily's voice echoed through their coms. We are the locals. And you just walked into our house. Suddenly, the lights in the tunnel flickered and died. The aliens relied heavily on their helmet displays. Without the lights, their night vision filters had to adjust, taking precious seconds. In those seconds, Emily wasn't there to attack. She was already gone, moving deeper into the maze of tunnels. But she had planted a seed of doubt. The aliens realized the humans could access their communications. On the surface, the walker stepped closer to the trapped soldiers. It raised its leg to stomp on them. Now, well, Mark screamed. Will fired the rocket. It didn't hit the walker. It hit the base of the unstable brick building. The explosion was massive. With a groan of twisting metal, the building collapsed sideways, falling right onto the walker's legs. The giant machine buckled and crashed to the ground, trapped onto tons of brick and mortar. The cannon on top pointed harmlessly at the sky. Yes! Mark cheered. Everyone, focus fire on the cockpit. While it's down, the soldiers poured bullets into the exposed cockpit of the walker. The glass shattered, and the aliens inside were silenced. They had won a small battle, but the war was just starting. Mark looked around at his city. It was burning. His people were dying. But he saw something in the eyes of his squad. They weren't scared anymore. They were angry. The aliens had woken them up, and now humanity was going to show them why Earth was not a planet to be trifled with. The fight for Earth had truly begun. The first hours of the invasion had passed, and the sky was dark with smoke. But the fighting on the ground had not stopped. The Royal Galactic Empire expected the humans to surrender after their main cities were bombed. They thought the primitive creatures would hide in caves and cry for mercy. They were wrong. The humans were not hiding. They were coming out of the woodwork, and they were angry. In a small town in what used to be the state of Virginia, the aliens had set up a command post in the town square. They thought this area was secure. They had surrounded the square with energy shields and parked their heavy transports there. But they did not know the town like the locals did. Sergeant Will was crawling through the mud of a drainage pipe that ran right under the town square. He was not alone. Behind him were 5 young soldiers, covered in dirt and grease. They moved quietly, like ghosts. Stop, Will whispered. He pointed up at a rusted grate above their heads. Through the gaps in the metal, they could see the feet of the alien guards. The aliens walked with a heavy, rhythmic step. They were tall and confident, but they made mistakes. They did not look down. They did not check the sewers. They have thermal sensors on their helmets, one of the young soldiers whispered nervously. I know, Will replied. But these pipes are full of cold water and waste. The heat from our bodies is masked by the muck. It's a classic trick. We learned it in the old wars, and it still works. Will signaled for the soldier to hand him a specialized charge. It was not a bomb to blow things up. It was a jammer. He carefully placed it against the wall of the pipe, right below the alien comms tower. He flipped a switch. A small red light turned on. Above ground, the aliens' communication devices suddenly filled with static. The commanders started shouting at each other, confused by the sudden silence. That's our cue, Will said. He kicked the grate open with a loud bang. Before the aliens could turn around, Will and his squad were out of the hole. They did not use their guns yet. They used knives and their hands. The aliens were wearing heavy armor on their chests and backs, but their joints were exposed. Will grabbed the guard by the ankle and pulled him down. The alien fell hard, hitting his head on the pavement. The squad moved with brutal efficiency. They were not fighting a war of honor. They were fighting a war of survival. In less than a minute, 4 elite alien soldiers were dead on the ground. Will didn't stop to celebrate. He grabbed the alien commander's weapon and looked at his squad. Secure the perimeter. Use their guns against them. We hold this square until help comes. Meanwhile, in another part of the country, Dr. Emily sat in a holding cell aboard a landed alien transport ship. She had been captured while trying to negotiate a ceasefire at a hospital. The cell was clean and white with a force field door. An alien commander walked in, his long fingers tapping against his tablet. He looked at Emily with disgust. "Why do you resist?" The commander asked, his voice translated by a device around his neck. "We are superior. Our technology is advanced. Your weapons are pathetic. You cannot win." Emily stood up and walked to the edge of the force field. She was not wearing armor, and she was physically smaller than the alien, but she stood tall. She adjusted her glasses and looked him in the eye. "You are right," Emily said calmly. "Your ships are faster. Your shields are stronger. Your lasers are hotter. But you don't understand us." "I understand enough," the commander said. "You are violent. You are chaotic." "We are violent because we have to be," Emily corrected him. "Do you know why we are so good at killing? We have had thousands of years of practice. We have fought against nature, against disease, and against each other. We have turned war into an art form. You see a battle as a math equation. We see it as a puzzle to be solved." The commander laughed. "You are just a prisoner. What can you do?" "I am not just a prisoner," Emily smiled. "I am a distraction." Suddenly, the lights in the ship flickered. A loud explosion rocked the hull of the ship. The commander stumbled. "What is happening?" "The sensors are clear." "Your sensors show heat and metal," Emily said. "But they don't show homemade bombs made from fertilizer and diesel fuel. My people have been placing those under your landing gear for the last hour." Outside the ship, chaos erupted. The humans were not attacking the front of the ship where the guns were. They were attacking the landing gear. Using cranes and tow trucks from a nearby construction site, they pulled on the ship's legs. Combined with the explosion under the hull, the massive transport tipped over. The aliens inside were thrown to the floor. The force field door to Emily's cell shorted out and vanished. She stepped out over the groaning alien commander. "We are very ingenious when we are cornered," she said. Back in New York City, Captain Mark was coordinating the defense from a subway station that had been turned into a temporary base. The room was filled with maps, radios, and tired soldiers. Lieutenant Sarah was at a bank of computers, typing faster than anyone had ever typed before. "They are changing tactics," Sarah said, not looking up from her screen. "They are grouping their walkers together to protect their weak spots. They are learning from us." Mark nodded. He looked at a map of the city. "They learn fast, but we learn faster. We can't beat their armor, so we have to trap them." "Where is the biggest group of walkers right now?" "Central Park," Sarah said. "They are trying to cut across to the other side of the island." Mark grinned. It was a dangerous grin. Central Park is a death trap. It has hills, trees, and narrow paths. It's perfect for us. Get me the National Guard unit that has the excavators. Tell them to head to the park. "Excavators?" Sarah asked, confused. "You want to dig holes?" "No," Mark said. "I want to break the ground beneath them. Tell them to dig trenches right in the walker's path, then cover them with branches and tarps. We're going to hunt these monsters." For the next 2 hours, the humans worked with a speed that terrified the alien drones watching from above. They didn't have high-tech construction gear. They used backhoes, shovels, and their own hands. They dug deep pits in the grass of the great park. They covered the pits with flimsy wood and leaves. Then, they hid in the trees and waited. When the Imperial walkers marched into the park, they felt confident. They crushed the small trees under their metal feet. They stepped on the hidden traps. The ground gave way. 6 massive walkers fell into the deep trenches, their legs tangled in the wood and earth. They couldn't move. They were stuck. Now, Mark yelled over the radio. From the trees, soldiers popped up. They weren't aiming for the cockpits. They were aiming for the cooling vents on the walkers' backs. They used simple hunting rifles and grenade launchers. They poured fire into the trap machines. Without the ability to move, the walkers were sitting ducks. One by one, they exploded, sending columns of black smoke into the air. On the bridge of the Imperius, Grand Vizier Malek watched the destruction of his walkers. He stood up, knocking his chair over. Impossible. They used digging machines? This is below us. General Kalen stood in the corner, watching the screen. He saw the humans celebrating in the park, cheering as the burning metal smoked. He saw the look in their eyes. It was not fear. It was determination. I told you, Kalen said softly. They do not fight fair. They fight to win. You are bringing a military to a gunfight, but they are bringing a mob that knows how to kill. Silence. Malek screamed. Send the elites. Send the berserkers. Kill them all. The war was changing. The humans were no longer just running away. They were analyzing, trapping, and destroying the invaders. The Empire had the bigger army, but the humans had the spirit, and that was a weapon that no alien shield could block. The battle for Earth was far from over. In fact, for the humans, it was just getting interesting. They had adapted to the alien threat, and now the real hunt began. The invasion had been going on for 6 hours, but to the commanders of the Royal Galactic Empire, it felt like 6 years. The initial plan was simple. Land, scare the population, and take control. But the plan was falling apart. The aliens were confused. Their tactical screens showed they had more soldiers, better weapons, and stronger armor. Yet, the numbers of their dead were rising at a terrifying rate. Grand Vizier Malek paced back and forth on the bridge of the Imperius Asterisk. His expensive robes were stained with sweat, and his hands shook slightly as he looked at the main hologram. Red dots were disappearing all over the map. Why is this happening? He yelled at the officers. We have the superior technology. We are the Royal Empire. Why are these monkeys killing us? General Kalen stood near the wall, watching the chaos. He looked tired but calm. Because you are fighting a war of math, Malek. But the humans are fighting a war of spirit. You expect them to line up and die. They refuse to do it. Malek ignored him. Send in the walkers to the center of the city. Crush the resistance. Use full power. The massive Imperial walkers, the giant metal machines that had terrorized the streets, began to march toward the city center. They stomped through cars and buildings with ease. Their plasma cannons fired blindly, destroying anything in their path. Malek watched the screens, waiting for the human morale to break. He thought that if he showed enough force, the humans would surrender. But Captain Mark was not thinking about surrender. He stood on the roof of a tall parking garage in the center of the city. Next to him was Sergeant Will, who was covered in dust and grime. Below them, the streets were narrow, lined with tall skyscrapers. It was a trap, and the humans had set it. They are coming, Will said, lifting his binoculars. 3 walkers. They are moving fast. They think they own the street. They do own the street, Mark said calmly, checking his radio. But they don't own the buildings. Sarah, are you ready? Mark spoke into the radio. Loud and clear, Cap, came the reply from Lieutenant Sarah, who was deep underground. I have hacked the city's power grid. I can black out the entire block in 3 seconds. Just give the word. Mark looked at Sergeant Will. Do it. Will did not aim his rocket launcher at the walker. He aimed at the top of a damaged skyscraper on the left side of the street. He fired. The rocket hit the steel beams of the building, exploding in a shower of sparks. The building, which had been weakened by the earlier fighting, groaned loudly. The alien drivers inside the walkers looked up in confusion. They saw the building falling, but they didn't understand. Their sensors told them the building was not a threat. But they were wrong. The massive skyscraper collapsed sideways, crashing down onto the street. It did not destroy the walkers, but it trapped them. Millions of tons of concrete and steel buried the legs of the machines, pinning them against the buildings on the other side. The walkers were stuck, unable to move their legs. They were helpless turtles on their backs. Now! Mark yelled out instantly. The streetlights went dark. Sarah had cut the power. In the darkness, hundreds of windows opened in the buildings overlooking the trapped walkers. Inside those windows were human soldiers with rocket launchers, machine guns, and even hunting rifles. They opened fire at once. The aliens inside the walkers panicked. Their shields were strong in the front, but they were not designed to fight enemies above them. The walkers were buried in the rubble, so they couldn't turn their main guns upward. Bullets and explosives rained down on their cockpits. The glass shattered, and one by one, the crews of the walkers were silenced in less than 5 minutes. 3 of the Empire's most powerful machines were destroyed, not by other machines, but by gravity and human cleverness. On the bridge of the Imperius, Malik fell to his knees. No, this is impossible. They used gravity? They used buildings? This is not how war is fought. Kalen walked over to him. This is exactly how Earth fights. They use the environment. They use the debris. They use anything they can find to hurt you. You brought a chessboard to a boxing match, Malik. Meanwhile, inside a holding cell on a crashed alien ship, Dr. Emily was smiling. The alarms were blaring red, and the ship was vibrating. The aliens guarding her were looking at their communicators with fear. The soldiers outside were screaming for help. You hear that? Emily asked the guard. The alien slammed his fist against the force field. Shut up, human. We will not lose. We have thousands of more ships coming. You don't understand, Emily said softly. We are not just killing your soldiers. We are breaking your mind. Look at your screen. The guard looked at the tactical display. It was showing messages, but they weren't tactical commands. Lieutenant Sarah had done her job well. The alien communication network was flooded with sounds. It wasn't human speech. It was the sounds of aliens dying. It was the screams of their comrades mixed with strange, terrifying human war music. It was psychological warfare. My soldiers! They cannot hear the orders. The guard yelled, grabbing his helmet. They are hearing their own deaths. Stop it. It's called fear, Emily said. You tried to scare us, but we are much better at being scary. We have had thousands of years of practice at it. Outside the ship, the human forces were not just attacking. They were swarming. Small teams of soldiers moved through the wreckage like wolves. They didn't attack the front armor of the alien tanks. They climbed on top of them. They used simple explosives to blow off the sensor antennas. They used torches to cut through the doors. They were brutal and fast. Sergeant Will found himself face to face with an elite alien soldier. The alien was twice his size and held a glowing energy sword. Will didn't have a sword. He had a heavy metal pipe he had pulled from a broken wall. The alien swung the sword, cutting the air. Will ducked. He didn't try to block the sword. He knew it would cut the pipe in half. Instead, he threw a handful of dirt into the alien's face. The alien screamed, blinded by the dirt. While the alien clawed at its eyes, Will swung the pipe with all his strength. He hit the alien in the knee joint, the only place where the armor was thin. There was a sickening crack, and the alien fell. Will didn't stop there. He used the pipe to disable the alien's weapon, leaving the creature helpless on the ground. It was not a noble duel. It was a street fight, and Will was the winner. Captain Mark watched the battle from a distance. He saw the alien lines breaking. They were retreating, not toward a new position, but just running away. He grabbed his radio. All units, press the attack. Don't let them regroup. Push them back to the landing zone. But Cap, we are low on ammo. A soldier yelled over the radio. Use their ammo. Mark ordered. Pick up their guns. Use their grenades. Keep the pressure on. The humans were adapting. They were learning how to use alien weapons within minutes of picking them up. It was a sight that terrified General Kalen as he watched from orbit. The humans were not just stubborn. They were brilliant mimics. Malik, Kalen said, his voice stern. Call the retreat. Now. Retreat? Malik whispered, his face pale. We never retreat. The Empire does not run. Today you run, Kalen said. Or tomorrow you die. Look at the ground. The humans are not defending anymore. They are counterattacking. They are coming for you. The Grand Vizier looked at the screen one last time. He saw a human soldier standing on top of a destroyed alien tank, waving a flag. It was a flag of defiance. Malik realized then that he had unleashed a force he could not control. The invasion had failed. The humans had won the day, and the nightmare for the Empire was just beginning. The Imperius, once the proud jewel of the Royal Galactic Empire, was no longer safe in the high orbit of Earth. The massive ship was shaking violently. From the surface, the humans had done the impossible. They had managed to drag old railguns and missile launchers to the tops of mountains. They were firing into space with a ferocity that the Empire had never seen before. The blue energy shields of the flagship were flickering and turning red under the constant bombardment. The Grand Vizier Maluk sat in his command chair, clutching the armrest so tightly that his knuckles were white. He was trembling, his arrogant confidence completely shattered. Report! He screamed, but his voice was shaking. The shields are failing, Vizier, a young officer reported, panic in his voice. We have hull breaches in sectors 4 and 7. The ground resistance, they are not slowing down. They are getting faster. Malik looked at the main screen. It was a nightmare for the Empire. The invasion force was in full retreat. Dropships were fleeing the atmosphere, chased by human jets that moved like angry hornets. The beautiful blue planet below looked peaceful, but it was actually a trap that had chewed up the Imperial army and spit it back out. General Kalen stepped onto the bridge. He walked slowly, ignoring the alarms blaring around him. He looked at Malak with pity, not anger. I warned you, Kalen said, his voice cutting through the noise. I told you to leave humanity alone. Malak looked up, his eyes wide with fear. How could they do this? We are the Empire. We are the supreme power in the galaxy. How could a bunch of primitive monkeys defeat us? They are not monkeys, Kalen said firmly. They are survivors. You tried to conquer a death world with creatures that have been fighting for their entire history. You brought them together. For centuries, these humans fought each other over borders and resources. Today, you gave them a common enemy. You didn't just invade a planet, Malak. You united humanity. Kalen walked to the communication station. Send the order to the entire fleet. All ships, break orbit. Retreat to the edge of the system. Do not engage the human forces. Just run. But the High Command. Malik stammered. They will execute us for retreating. If we stay, we die, Kalen snapped. And if we die, There will be no one left to tell the High Command why we failed. Go. Now." On the surface of the planet, in the ruined streets of New York City, the dust was beginning to settle. Captain Mark stood on top of a pile of debris that used to be an alien tripod. The air smelled of smoke, burning metal, and ozone, but it also smelled like victory. He was exhausted. His uniform was torn, and he had a bandage around his left arm, but he was alive. Around him, the soldiers of the Earth Defense Coalition were cheering, waving their rifles in the air. Sergeant Will walked up to him, carrying a stolen alien plasma rifle over his shoulder. He was covered in soot, but he had a wide grin on his face. "Hey, Cap, look up." Mark raised his eyes to the sky. The dark shapes of the alien ships were streaking upward, leaving trails of smoke behind them. They were leaving. "They're really going," Mark said, almost not believing it. "We actually drove them off." "Yeah, but not without a fight," Will said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I saw them running back to their ships. They were scared. They looked at us like we were monsters." "Maybe we are," Mark said softly. "Maybe that's what we needed to be to survive." Nearby, Lieutenant Sarah was helping to organize the wounded. She looked tired, but her fingers were still moving quickly over her tablet. "Cap, I'm tracking their retreat," she said. "They aren't just leaving the city. They are leaving the planet entirely. They are regrouping at the moon, but they are moving away." "Good," Mark said. "Let them go. We can't fight a space battle right now. We need to save the people trapped in the rubble." Dr. Emily emerged from the subway entrance, followed by a group of civilians she had led to safety. She was dusty and her glasses were cracked, but she looked relieved. She walked over to Mark and the others. "It's quiet," she said, listening to the air. "The shooting has stopped." "For now," Mark said. Emily looked up at the retreating ships, her eyes filled with a mix of wonder and cold calculation. "You know, we learned a lot today," she said. "We learned that we can hurt them. We learned that their technology isn't magic. And we got our hands on a lot of their equipment." Will patted the plasma rifle he was holding. "You mean this toy?" "Yeah, it kicks like a mule, but it cuts through concrete like butter." Emily nodded. "We can reverse engineer this. By the time they come back, and we all know they will come back, we won't be using their old guns. We'll be building better ones. We will be ready." Mark looked at his team. These were ordinary people a week ago. A soldier, a police sergeant, a computer nerd, and a scientist. Now, they were veterans of an intergalactic war. He felt a surge of pride, but also a heavy weight on his shoulders. The world had changed forever. Humanity knew now that they were not alone in the universe, and that the universe was hostile. "Let them run," Mark said, loud enough for all the soldiers nearby to hear. "Let them go back to their stars and tell their empire what happened here. Let them tell them that Earth is not a resource to be mined. It is a fortress." The soldiers cheered again, a sound that echoed through the broken streets. High above, on the bridge of the Imperius, Grand Vizier Moloch watched the blue planet get smaller and smaller on the view screen. He felt a deep sense of shame, but also a strange, lingering fear. He had faced the humans, and he had seen the darkness in their eyes. What will we tell them? Malik whispered to Kalen. What will we tell the High Command? Kalen stood by the window, watching the Earth shrink until it was just a blue marble again. The truth, Kalen said. We will tell them that there is a species out there that does not know how to quit. We will tell them that Earth is a forbidden world. We will tell them that if they ever come back, they must bring an entire fleet, because a single invasion force is not enough. Malik sat back in his chair, defeated. They are dangerous. They are crazy. They are human, Kalen replied. And they will never stop. On the surface, Captain Mark and his team watched the last ship disappear into the blackness of space. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden light over the ruined city. It was beautiful and tragic. Sergeant Will took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and lit one, breathing in the smoke deeply. "Do you think they learned their lesson?" Will asked. Doctor. Emily adjusted her cracked glasses and looked up at the stars where the aliens had gone. "I don't know," she said. "But we certainly learned ours." "What lesson is that?" Mark asked. Emily smiled, a cold, determined smile. "That we can kill them. That's the most important lesson of all." Mark nodded. He looked at his tired soldiers in the ruined city, then up at the stars again. The invasion was over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. They had survived the first day, and as the darkness covered the city, the lights of the human resistance still burned bright, refusing to go out. They were awake now, and they were angry. The galaxy would have to be ready for them